This is part 2 of my series, The Relationship Skills That Men Lack and That Women Pay For. If you've not watched part 1, go back and watch that one first because that's going to give you the bigger map. But this one's going to go deeper into the most exhausting, disorienting patterns in abusive relationships. So you tell him that he hurt you, how dare you, and somehow he becomes the injured one. He flips into the victim immediately. So you come to him with pain, with a specific incident, with the real impact, a behavior that hurt you, something he said, something he did, something he keeps doing. And before you know it, the conversation has moved away from what he did. And now we're talking about his feelings about being told that he hurt you because he feels attacked. He feels like the bad guy. He feels like nothing he ever does is good enough. He feels like a monster, like you're always blaming him, like he can't do anything right. And suddenly, there you are being like, it's okay. You're reassuring him. I still love you. You're clarifying. I'm not calling you a bad person. I just don't like the thing that you did. Here you are managing his shame, managing his alleged remorse, because plenty of these men do not feel shame or remorse, but they're pretty good at performing it. You are comforting the man who hurt you because hearing about what he did to you, well, that makes him feel bad, and we can't have that. But that's the pattern. And if you've lived this, I'm telling you, I know my clients know, I know my followers know how crazy making this is. This is a story that I hear over and over again, and I definitely lived it. On the surface, these men sound so wounded, right? They sound emotional and possibly self-aware. I think some are very good at performing self-reflection and self-awareness, but it's interesting how the outcome is always the same, right? Your pain, gone. We don't need to talk about that. We don't want to talk about what happened. We're not going to talk about the actual actions or behaviors because the emergency is his injury, is that you told him that he hurt you. So now you leave the conversation and somehow you're still upset about the thing that he did, but now you're upset that you hurt his feelings. But you know what you're not talking about? His behavior. Instead, you are talking about his feelings about being confronted with his own behavior. So today, I want to break down why some men can't receive feedback, how shame tolerance and distress tolerance connects to accountability, and how emotional dysregulation is a control tactic in these cases, and why this pattern is not going to be fixed by you explaining it better, by you changing. My name is Lisa Sonni. I'm a certified relationship coach, and I am an expert in toxic and abusive relationships. And on this channel, I expose what abusive men are doing, what tactics they're using, what they're missing, so that women can see through this, exit relationships like this, and frankly, never be in relationships like this with these kinds of men, become more confident, rebuild, and feel like they are themselves. So this is how these conversations start with men like this, right? Let's slow it down for a second here. You come to him with an attempt at a conversation about something very specific. You yelled at me in front of the kids and it scared me. Or, you just ignored me and stonewalled me for 3 days. That hurt. You mocked me during the argument in front of so-and-so and I felt humiliated. When you pressure me after sex, when I say no, it makes me feel unsafe. You promised to help, you promised to change, and then you did nothing and I feel alone. All of these things, right? It's very specific. The action and the feeling, the impact. You're not actually starting with an attack, but he's receiving it that way. What you're starting with is the impact. You're naming what happened. And actually, this is a very healthy approach to conflict resolution in a relationship, right? A direct and honest conversation where you're not highly emotional, you're not attacking him, you're just saying the thing. That is healthy communication, but men are going to receive that very differently if they're abusive. Here you are doing some crazy thing like trying to bring reality into the room. And in a healthy relationship, that should matter. Your attempt at doing this in a healthy way with the right words at the right time, it's a good thing. But your pain would be allowed to exist in a healthy relationship. And it isn't here. In this pattern, your pain, if it's ever talked about at all, it's for 2 seconds before we shift into how he feels about what he just heard. Abusive men genuinely are experiencing feedback as humiliation because how dare you? Right? You're giving feedback and he's like, what the hell? You're naming he did something, you're naming abuse, you're naming what he's done. Just his actual real life behavior, and he is experiencing this as an accusation. Even if you are not wording it in that way, it doesn't actually matter how you word it to an abusive man. You've got to understand that in an abusive relationship, there is a power structure, okay? There's a hierarchy, and he likes it like this. This is him and this is you, and never forget that. So he experiences loss of rank because on what planet does a subordinate get to come in and tell their boss, tell the leader,
tell the alpha male
what he's doing wrong, right? He gets to make all of the decisions. He decides how to treat you, and he decides how you should feel about how he treats you. And if you have different feelings than he has, you need to STFU because he does not care. So if you say, this hurt me, he hears, you are bad. And once he hears that, he does not respond to your pain. Instead, he flips and he has to protect his identity. And now the conversation is him proving that he's not the bad guy, that he's not bad, that he's not what you just said he is. Even though you didn't say he was something, you said he did something. So you're not talking about that he hurt you. You're not talking about what needs to change or how to repair. It's like his image, his feeling of being a good man. He needs to be seen as being a good man, even if he's not doing the behaviors of a good man. That part, that's irrelevant. That's why the conversations go sideways so friggin' quickly, because it doesn't matter. You're talking about behavior and he is defending his self-image. You're having two different conversations in the same room. And this is where I'm going to connect this to shame tolerance and distress tolerance being important relationship skills. Shame tolerance means a person can feel the discomfort of being wrong and they're not going to fall apart. They're not going to attack you. They're not going to make somebody else responsible for fixing the feeling. They are going to sit in the discomfort of that feeling. But I have to acknowledge that many of these men are not feeling shame. They're good at performing shame. I'm not saying all of them are not feeling shame. Some are absolutely feeling that. And it's actually really hard to tell. In the words of Dr. George Simon, who wrote Character Disturbances and A Wolf in Sheep's Clothing, phenomenal psychologist, he describes narcissism specifically as no shame. He calls them shameless, in fact. And I really appreciate that take because this idea that it's a shame-based disorder is a myth. It's really not what they're experiencing. It looks like it. It's more the remorse of being caught. They feel shame that people think that they're bad. But again, it's not the shame that's going to create any type of difference in them. When someone feels shame, they often stop the behavior. But a lot of abusive men just keep doing the behavior. That's not an example of shame. A safe person can feel shame and stay present. They can feel bad, right? The feeling is there. They like, oh God, like you're so, but they can hear you. But somebody who's abusive can't hear you, right? So they might be like, I need a minute. Or, I didn't realize that what I did landed that way for you. I want to understand. I see that I hurt you. And I know I need to take responsibility for that. That's the definition of shame tolerance. That's what it would sound like. The feeling comes up, but they don't just go, I don't want that. You take it. I don't want the shame. It's yours. No, I reject that. I'm not bad. You didn't say he was bad. But a lot of men were never taught this. This is a relationship skill deficit you see in a lot of men. Now, as I acknowledged in my first video, these skills can be a deficit in men and women. Anybody who's abusive likely has these skills deficits. I'm specifically talking about abusive men because that's what my channel focuses on. But these skills deficits don't automatically make a man abusive. But when you pair these skills deficits with entitlement, with misogyny, that is where this becomes abusive and it becomes very dangerous for women. Because as I say, a lot of men were never taught this. Sure, there are women that were never taught this, but the fact is more men, significantly more men, were not taught these skills. Women are taught these skills through the patriarchy, through conditioning. But men are taught that being wrong is weakness, or if somebody criticizes you, they're being disrespectful, particularly in a hierarchy with men and women in intimate relationships. That shame that they feel or that negative feeling, they're in distress. It has to be escaped immediately. So when that bad feeling hits, they fight it. And you're the person standing there. So you become the target. An abusive and defensive man makes your pain very unsafe to say out loud. Like you're not allowed to speak. And I think defensiveness can look normal at first. People get defensive, right? Whoa, that's not what I meant. Hey, you're taking it the wrong way. I didn't say it like that. Or you always assume the worst. But you see, it's like you're twisting things. I can never talk to you. God, you make everything a problem. The more he defends, the more you explain, the more you change how you explain, the words, the tone, the day of the week, right? But the more he argues, because we can flip things. The conversation is now not about what he did, it's about your wording. And you know what example I love to use?
I'm not yelling. I just raised my voice.
We all hear that one, right? You're remembering things wrong. You know what? Yeah, you said it nicely, but also I don't like your tone. Your words were fine, but I don't like the way you said it. You had an attitude. What the hell, right? It's the way you brought it up, the emotion that he thinks you're displaying, your sensitivity, your past. You're just projecting all your trauma from your ex onto me. I'm not your ex, right? You're too sensitive. You need to seek therapy, all of it. But he's not talking about his original behavior, right? Gone. What a magic trick. You brought up abuse or harm or hurt, and it flips into a debate about the way you brought it up, the timing that you brought it up. So now you're defending how you said it and when you said it instead of actually just talking about what he did. It's one of the coolest ways that they can get you off point very quickly. Now, accountability is a little bit of a tricky one because sometimes these guys like fall apart. And I know they don't all do this, but this is a sneaky one. A lot of abusive men will yell and get really loud and deflect and defensive, and that's not accountability. But what about the guys that are like, I'm such a terrible person. I know I'm abusive. You deserve so much better than me. I ruin everything. Oh, I can just never make you happy. It's your standards, right? Fine, I'm the worst. Maybe you should just leave me. Ugh. All of this sounds very emotional, particularly if they seem authentic, particularly for the guys that actually don't even do that as often. So when you start to see this version, I see them changing tactics. But what you see is, look, he's not yelling anymore. He's trying he's doing this thing. Maybe he's starting to actually feel it because you see it as remorse and guilt. And even if you can go like, hey, that's shame, which I would argue it's not, but it looks like shame to you. You're like, he's going to change now because now he's starting to get it. So let me ask you some questions. Did he name the behavior? Because I'm hearing like, I'm such a bad guy, but did he name the behavior? Why are you a bad guy? But again, you didn't say he was a bad guy. You said the behavior hurt you. Does he understand the impact? I know, I hurt you. Does he understand the impact? Yeah, you're hurt, obviously. What else? What does that cause? What is you being hurt? What is the impact of you being hurt? Does he understand that? Don't explain it to him. Does he understand that? Does he stay with your pain? Can he actually sit there with it? Does he repair? And my favorite question, does he change? Does anything actually get better? Because this little falling apart performance is just another way for him to avoid accountability. Because now you're not talking about your pain. No, you're talking about his alleged shame. You're sitting here going, no, babe, you're not terrible. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I do love you. No, I'm not saying that you never do anything right. You're taking care of the man who hurt you. Again, it's crazy. This is not repair. This is just, he's faking the remorse, I'm telling you. Now, this one happens all the damn time, right? This is another one of their moves. You say, you hurt me, and he's like, but I didn't mean to hurt you. Okay, so that doesn't matter, right? I always say like impact and intent are such an interesting thing because abusive men want you so badly to focus on their intent. But I gotta say, their alleged intent, okay? Because I didn't mean to hurt you. Maybe he did. Maybe he did, actually. But yeah, maybe he didn't. Hard to say because intent is not something that is visual. Like you can't see it. I can't prove to you that he intended it other than if he didn't intend it, he'd stop. And if he did intend it, he'd keep going. It would keep happening again. So to me, that's the most obvious piece. But when you're in a bad relationship like this, if you're very attached, if you're in a trauma bond, these things can be hard to see. It can be like, but he's trying instead of, yeah, this keeps happening. So intent matters, right? Like a good example is like if I just walked up to you and smacked you, that's terrible because that's violence, that's assault, and I did it on purpose. But if I was just talking and you happened to be standing close to me and I accidentally smacked you, I should still own the fact that I smacked you and that I didn't mean it, and that matters because it was an accident. But now I'm going to step 2 feet away from you because I move my arms a lot. I'm going to do something different to prevent you from getting smacked again. But if I'm just like, well, you were standing too close to me, too bad, and I keep doing it and you get smacked 3 more times, you have to start to question that, right? So in either case, even if the intent wasn't there to hurt, there is an apology, but the impact has to take priority because the impact, whether it was an accident or on purpose, is that you got smacked, right? That's just the analogy. Like it doesn't matter. So it's not a matter of arguing whether or not it was intended or not. Now, they might say that wasn't my intention and then shift into the impact. That's what healthy would look like. The intention matters, but it's by far not the most important part. A lot of abusive men say things like, I would never try to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. I feel bad that I hurt you, but then they keep doing it. So now you have to help him prove that he had good intentions. That is crazy making behavior. We're not dealing with the impact, we're dealing with the intent. You're not allowed to be upset because he didn't mean it. Meanwhile, he might have meant it. But even if he didn't, it doesn't matter. A man who keeps using intent to avoid the actual impact, he is protecting himself from taking accountability. And this is the perfect example of him trying to say, but I only because you. So he's actually trying to shift accountability to avoid him taking it. This is why so many men constantly say women never take accountability. You mean for provoking a man. You mean for what she did to make him that way, because men are toddlers who are not responsible for their feelings, right? No, you didn't like that. Men are autonomous. Great, then men should take responsibility for all of their actions and all of their behaviors and not blame women for what men do. But an abusive man will always blame women. And then the craziest part about all of that is he'll also make your reaction the actual problem, right? How dare you say he hurt you? How dare you react and cry or raise your voice or get defensive? You don't get to do any of those things. He, of course, gets to do all of those things. But if you panic or try to leave the room or anything, like, do you see? Do you see? Look at you crying. Look how mad you're getting, right? You're so unstable. You're so hard to talk to. You're always attacking me. Look, you're the abusive one. Your reaction is now on trial. That's why these relationships actually feel very litigious, right? You are in this relationship and you feel like you're in a friggin' courtroom, literally arguing whether or not you have a right to react to a behavior. And we're not going to ignore how we're walking face first into an interesting point that a man having a big reaction is like, yeah, but you made him that way. What happened before that? Where's the context, right? He's justified. I only yelled because you weren't listening. Okay, so when you yell, what? No, that's unacceptable because you can't yell, but that's the hierarchy. You're not allowed to yell at him, but he's allowed to yell at you. You have to see those things. This is a guy who literally provokes injury and then gets mad at you that you're upset. He gets mad at the symptom of the injury that he provoked intentionally. And because your reaction is visible, maybe you've been provoked and provoked and provoked and finally poof, you explode, people might believe that you're the problem. This is why this pattern is just wildly dangerous. Now, over the last, decade, a lot of men have started to look at therapy, right? Therapy used to be something that people didn't talk about. Now you hear people be like, oh yeah, I was talking to my therapist. It's just normal. So this whole myth of like abusive men or narcissists never go to therapy, that is no longer true, my friend. A lot of them will actually go to therapy and then they use therapy language to sound mature. That's why you hear men say things like, I have boundaries, right? Like, I have a boundary that I don't date fat women. That's not a boundary. I mean, arguably it's a preference, but it's not a boundary. And it has nothing to do with other people. It doesn't mean you have to shame other people. It just means you make a quiet little choice. But you're going to hear an abusive man say things like, I don't feel emotionally safe. I need boundaries. You're attacking me. This conversation feels toxic, or you're projecting. Ugh, I hate that one. Or like, oh, you know what? My biggest piss off is, oh, you're triggered. You're triggered. You are triggering someone and then going, oh, you're triggered. Maybe stop triggering the person, right? But I also think the accusation of being triggered is what triggers some people. You were fine. You were just expressing something and then suddenly you have to be triggered. They have to put a label on it. They're literally misusing the word. But the phrases are real. And people need safety and boundaries, even abusers, right? Everybody needs those things. But abusive men are just using healthy language to make themselves sound reasonable, look reasonable, but they're avoiding that the behavior is being named, right? So like you say, you yelled at me and you don't like that. And he's like, you know what? Your tone feels really unsafe. What the hell? You pressured me. And he goes, well, I feel rejected and unwanted. And switch, right? He needs space from your negativity. What? That's why he stonewalled you for a week? What? Now the language sounds healthy, but I want you to look at the direction pointing away from his behavior. Where did this conversation go? Not towards accountability, absolutely not. And this works really well on women because we are conditioned to be fair. Women with a conscience care about being honest and fair and self-reflective, and they don't want to be cruel or hurting someone. And women are constantly being told that they're too emotional, too demanding, and too sensitive, and do this and do that. It's crazy making. So women who don't want to become another person's problem, they're going to ignore their own feelings. So a guy like this, he says he feels attacked. You pause because you care. So you think, how can I say that differently where he doesn't feel attacked? Instead of he needs to manage the fact that words make him feel attacked. Calm, direct words. Now, if you're screaming at him and name calling, I could appreciate that any person would feel attacked. I think abusive men should know that. They do it. But to just say, listen, can we talk? I really felt hurt when you fill in the blank. And he's like, I feel attacked. You're crazy. He's crazy. He's deflecting. He's absolutely deflecting. Your empathy is the way for him to get out of this conversation. He is exploiting your fairness and your empathy, your kindness, your desire to be fair and not cruel. He knows that you'll care that he feels bad. And he knows that you're going to take his feelings and you're going to make those the much bigger conversation, the much bigger emergency. And so over time, women are like, don't use that word, don't cry, don't use this, don't say that, don't bring up the past, don't bring up his past anyway, he can bring up your past, don't bring it up later, but don't bring it up right now, don't dogpile him, don't make him feel blamed, definitely don't make him feel ashamed, can't feel like the bad guy. You're being trained, you're managing his capacity and you're not looking at his behavior. And we are always in this role. He is being very strategic. Now, strategic doesn't mean smart. A lot of these things are, I want to say natural. They're learned, but it comes naturally to him. We can't communicate a man like this into capacity. You cannot talk to a man who does not have the ability to sit in shame and distress. You can't explain emotional regulation. You can't be like sitting there teaching him boxed breathing techniques or grounding techniques. He doesn't care. The point is to avoid these things. If a healthy man wanted these skills, even say like a toxic man versus an abusive one, if he wanted these skills, he would start learning it. He would go to therapy. I mean, shit, he'd chat GBT it if he had to. There are so many tools and resources to people. I'm not recommending that as a way, but like he would do something to try. Some men are not misunderstanding you. They just resist and deflect because they benefit from this version of the relationship. This is part 2 of the relationship skills men lack that women pay for. Part 1 was the map, and this one was truly the most important pieces, because a man that can't regulate his shame, receive feedback, sit with the impact, or take any accountability will be very unsafe. You are in an abusive relationship. If you're softening and like prepping him for the conversation and managing his reaction and apologizing for how you said it, when you said it, twisting yourself into a pretzel, this is exactly how his missing skill becomes something that you have to stay silent about. Subscribe if you're not already. And in part 3, I'm going to talk about boundaries, consequences, and why some men do not change just because women explain it better. No more talking. They change when losing access interrupts their benefit. And if you're trying to understand the difference between normal conflict and a relationship where your pain keeps getting turned back on you, you can work with me one-on-one, join any of my group coaching programs, or join me inside She Rises Collective, a monthly online community for women survivors of abuse. If he turns your pain into an injury for him, then you're not talking about repair. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.